I fully agree with Eric Sprott, who's a silver buck and who has made clear in the last 20 years that the amount of silver which has been sold in paper isn't backed by physical. If we get more and more eyes on the Fort Knox story, if we get more and more eyes on the story, if there's enough precious metal to back all these paper claims, this could get explosive, and you could see $100 silver in a few days. And I don't think it will stop there. And within the next decade, we'll see silver prices way over $100 per ounce. And I fully agree with Eric Sprott, who's a silver buck and who has made clear in the last 20 years that the amount of silver which has been sold in paper isn't backed by physical. So if we get more and more eyes on the Fort Knox story, if we get more and more eyes on the story, if there's enough precious metal to back all these paper claims, this could get explosive, and you could see $100 silver in a few days. And I don't think it will stop there. And within the next decade, we'll see silver prices way over $100 per ounce. And so if you're looking for something not to speculate, to secure your pension, your old age, you always have the gold funds and the gold bucks who are always buying gold. But what's more important for the general gold market is, what do the general investors do? What do the sovereign investors do? What do the central banks do? And when central banks are starting to flee towards gold, which has been happening in the last 3 years, that's very telling, because these are the guys who are allowed to print money. So if they start to buy gold, that's a sign. And institutional investors only buy gold when there's the smell of war in the air, when there's the smell of chaos. And there's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of madness. Look what's happening coming from the White House on a daily basis. So expect more chaos, expect more flight to gold. And when I just was present at the keynote of Eric Sprott, a well-known investor in our space, Canadian billionaire, he said when they start to open up Fort Knox, a lot of eyes will be opened. So I think he's right. I think the U.S. has played a great number of tricks to keep the gold price, managed to avoid a gold price explosion. But we might get that gold price explosion now, because there's an awful lot going on. This is a president who has campaigned for a few things: draining the swamp, getting rid of the corruption, but also he's in favor of great transparency, and so is Elon Musk. And when you say transparency, it reminds me actually about Gorbachev, the former Russian president who started his glasnost, which was also about openness and transparency. It took Gorbachev to open up that closed Soviet system. It took him a few years, but 6 years later it collapsed, because that system couldn't stand transparency. And I'm a bit afraid that the US system might get very unstable because of too much transparency.
Experts like Willem Middelkoop suggest that tariffs may serve as a negotiation tactic, but warn that they could contribute to inflation and even trigger a recession. Regarding BRICS, Middelkoop argues that U.S. efforts to impose 100% tariffs on BRICS nations signal fear rather than strength. He believes such aggressive measures will only accelerate de-dollarization, strengthening BRICS instead of weakening it. Soon after taking office in January, Trump took particular aim at the BRICS countries, original members Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, plus newcomers including Egypt, Ethiopia, and Iran, which have discussed possible ways to conduct more international commerce in something other than the dollar. In October 2024, during the BRICS summit in Kazan, members discussed the development of BRICS Pay, a decentralized payment messaging system aimed at facilitating transactions in local currencies. In tandem with these efforts, central banks worldwide have been increasing their gold reserves as a hedge against dollar exposure. Furthermore, Middelkoop sees a shift from globalization to a divided world, with the dollar system weakening. Let's get back to the interview.
I think the tariffs is just a way to start negotiations. Yeah, and then you can skip the tariffs, because tariffs are jacking up prices as well, and I think we might see a return of inflation. I'm from the Netherlands. We just today had our new inflation number. It's already 3.8%. It's almost 4%. So we could have this pickup in inflation worldwide to see a second wave of inflation, maybe an even stronger wave. So that's risky. I'm not that worried about tariffs, but it might cause a recession because the economy is quite fragile and tariffs don't help it. That's the problem for him. He started in January with an American economy who's already slowing down, and I think we're already in recession. And I'm afraid that the way he is cutting budgets, and because of all the drastic Dutch actions, it sure will be in a recession, a severe recession. I've been speaking and writing about the BRICS and the power of the BRICS and the development of this alliance since at least 2016, when I revised the Big Reset, which can be downloaded for free at our website for people who are interested. And first, people criticized me. And even Mark Rutte, he used to be Prime Minister in the Netherlands, and he said the BRICS is just they just talk. We don't have to take that serious. Well, when you start to have tariffs of 100% against the BRICS countries, you take them very serious. So this shows to me that the US is afraid of the BRICS alliance, and he should be afraid of the BRICS alliance. But when you start to punish them and threaten them with 100% tariffs, that's a sign of weakness. That's not a sign of strength. Actually, that shows you're losing, and you have to become a bully. It's bully politics, and using the more countries like the one who are in the BRICS alliance understand they have to move away from the dollar. They need to hedge. They know the US is weak, and the US is showing it with its actions. So the BRICS alliance is very powerful, in my opinion. It's only starting. China is leading this. We came from this globalized world at the end of the late 80s, where communism collapsed and we all started to live together happily on this planet. But now we have seen an end of this trend towards more globalization, and now we have this bifurcation of the world economy, and we treat China as our enemy. I don't think China is an enemy. Maybe China is an enemy to the US dollar system, which makes China an enemy from the American point of view. But I always say in Europe, China is not our enemy. China has been around for 10,000 years. China never conquered Europe. We in Europe shouldn't be like a vassal state of the US. We should have our own policy. And what's happening now with Trump threatening to leave NATO, actually for us in Europe, that's a good thing, because finally we have to start thinking about our own policy and not just follow the US. So there's a lot going on. There are many moving parts. Actually, you could say the Big Reset has started. It also reminds me of Neil Howe's book, The Fourth Turning. Every 80 years you get a new system. It's right 80 years after 1945, which was the end of the Second World War, which was the start of the dollar system and the dollar hegemony. So we're in for a large change, and we're getting it now. And let's hope we survive without too much chaos.